Welcome to the February 2012 LexaNet 701 webinar. My name is Christy Bookman, and I am just very happy to have you join us today on this Valentine's Day. We're going to go ahead and get started as we have a 30-minute session today and lots of information to get through. You're right now muted, and you'll stay muted throughout the presentation, but please feel free to ask any questions that you may have. We would love to answer those, and we'd also appreciate any feedback that you have. So use the GoToWebinar toolbar that you have on your screen, and just feel free to ask any questions. We'll be watching for those throughout the presentation. So let's get started. Today we're going to discuss using personalization to make your donors and prospects love you. Just 1 week ago, on February 7th, TechCrunch reported that it had obtained exclusive data from ComScore showing that Pinterest just hit 11.7 million unique monthly U.S. visitors. They crossed the 10 million mark faster than any other standalone site in history. According to ComScore, the average Pinterest user spends 98 minutes per month on the site. If you don't know what Pinterest is, it's basically an online sharing site. You have to be invited by another Pinterest member to participate, but then on Pinterest you're able to see a huge repository of images, some of which are links to websites. Much like Twitter, you can follow the pins of others too, your friends, your family, people you don't even know. And the items that you like are pinned to your custom bulletin boards. Here is a look at my Pinterest account. When I log in, I'll see the images that my friends and the people that I'm following have selected or pinned recently. The images that I like or pin are posted to my custom bulletin boards. And I can organize my bulletin boards and name my boards any way that I want. For example, the recipes that I like and that I pin, I've chosen to post to a board that I call Looks Yummy. So you may be asking yourself, what does this have to do with my donors and prospects? Well, there's one thing that Pinterest has in common with the effective way to make your donors and prospects heed your call to action, and that's personalization. How is personalization incorporated into Pinterest? What is it about Pinterest that causes people to engage? And what makes that connection? Well, first, Pinterest is very visual. Users can utilize those visual images to their experience by creating some boards based on their category interest. Users follow others that have similar likes and similar interests. And all of these things really come back to the number one reason that Pinterest is such a fast-growing internet addiction. It's all about me. How many times have you heard the phrase, show me that you know me? The Pinterest platform has done a great job of letting their users create their own custom experience. And show me that you know me absolutely applies to fundraising marketing. To have successful campaigns, you need to show your donors and prospects that you care enough about them to have taken the time to create a marketing message that relates to them and relates to their interests. And it's not as hard or as expensive as it might seem. Now, before we look at some specific examples, let's take a look at a brand new study that was just released on Friday. It was reported in Scoop It on Friday, February 10th, that Facebook recently sponsored a study that was run by NeuroFocus. The intention of the study was to quantitatively determine how people respond to websites and to web ads. And the results had some really interesting findings for marketers. NeuroFocus used devices to measure the brain waves of searchers when they were visiting a website and looked to see if any patterns emerged. The researchers tested the subjects' reactions to 3 different web pages. And the reactions that they measured were attention. The test subjects had clear instances of sustained focus and shifted focus. It was easy to measure when they were interested by looking at something or when their attention was diverted to something else. They also measured emotional engagement. There was a clear delineation between positive and negative emotional response to certain page elements. For the purposes of the study, a positive emotional response was called approach motivation, which means the test subject felt motivated to do something. They had an emotional response, as opposed to a negative emotional response, which was avoidance motivation. They also tested memory retention. Researchers could clearly detect when something on the page was interesting enough to be stored in the test subject's memories. Now, in addition to measuring the direct brain responses during an experience, NeuroFocus also measured the degree to which messages and conceptual associations are strengthened by an experience. This messaging resonance metric measures the extent to which the experience provided a subconscious lift. And we're going to look at some examples here pretty soon that really are clear the resonance. NeuroFocus measured resonance to 3 messaging words: connecting, advice, and for me. These words were chosen because they represent some of the key concepts that marketers would expect to be activated when visiting sites such as these or when opening marketing materials from you. Even though these studies were specific to websites and web ads, we certainly contend that the information is valuable for those of us that are doing e-marketing, direct marketing, all kinds of different interactions with our donors and with our prospects. And based on the 3 websites that were tested, each fell into one of 3 categories. First, the New York Times homepage resonated with messaging related to advice. The standard non-personalized Yahoo homepage resonated with messaging that the reader perceived was for me. And the user space page and newsfeed resonated with messaging that was connecting. Let's quickly walk through each one to see the differences. The New York Times homepage resonated with advice. The homepage was heavily informational, but neither personal nor social. It had no subtle links to topics that were of interest to the reader. The ads that populated on the page had nothing to do with any previous searches or anything specific about that individual user. Now think about a marketing piece that you may have seen that explains in great deal the need for funds or the need for a solicitation, but really doesn't contain anything that's personal or social for the reader. There's no personalization to the reader in the images used or in the text used. And think about what the responses were to that particular mailing. The Yahoo page, which is the non-personalized homepage, resonated with the user as messaging for me. The site is highly informational and entertainment-oriented, but again has no information relating specifically to the user. The images used on the page are static, and they don't vary at all, including the ads. Now think about a marketing piece that you may have seen that would be considered for me. Light and fun, very entertaining, and provides the reader with information about a campaign that will benefit students, etc. The piece doesn't display images relevant to the user or have any text customizations, but it isn't detail heavy either. What were the results and what were the response rates from this marketing piece? The Facebook homepage resonated with those tested as messaging that connected the reader with the page. The site is highly personal, highly informational, and highly customizable. The message resonance test scored very high. The content on the page and the messages that the reader's brain received resonated with the user. Now, I would submit that if Pinterest were tested, it would also be a connecting resonator. Would it not make sense then that the reader would have a much more likely emotional response with this type of connecting marketing message? We want our audience to feel a connection. to garner an emotional trigger to respond, to take our call to action, to give, to volunteer, and to engage. Let's take a minute and look at some examples of personalized marketing pieces and consider which category these marketing messages would test into. Would they be advice, for me, or connecting? And let's hope that they're all connecting. This example includes the interesting use of the recipient's name. Whether it's written in the clouds, written in the sand, even with coffee beans. It's a creative way to incorporate the user's name or the recipient's name into the marketing piece. People like to see their names, and utilizing the name makes the user feel that the piece was created specifically for them. But unless we know that Steve is a football fanatic or that Allison loves the beach, we really are doing nothing more than adding a personal salutation to our message. We've made the message for me, but is it connecting? And keep in mind that the examples that we're looking at today are for printed marketing materials, but the same personalization elements also apply to email communications and other types of marketing to donors and prospects. We can't forget about landing pages that are personalized URLs, and personalization within a QR code, for example. Personalized landing pages will gain much more connection and response than a non-personalized landing page. This example incorporates a little bit more personalization. These two postcards are from the same mailing. The artwork on the left was reserved for male recipients. Dave, being a male, receives the hammock. The artwork on the right was created specifically for female recipients. Catherine is lounging on the beach, and we show her photo underneath the umbrella. Here's another example. The pink checkbook wallet was mailed to prospective female students, while the black bifold wallet was mailed to prospective male students. These again are examples of for me, but we're getting closer to connecting. This is a great example of utilizing images to attract the attention of and connect with donors based on their affiliation with the university. So if your affiliation is with the School of Agriculture, the School of Arts and Sciences, the School of Veterinary Medicine, or even a satellite campus, the main theme of so many reasons to believe can be conveyed while incorporating something specific based on the recipient's preferences. Does the recipient know that they've received a personalized self-mailer? Maybe not, but the subtle and perhaps even subconscious image and messaging choices will connect with the recipient and gain you higher response rates. Here are some other subtle examples. The outer envelope of this closed-faced letter incorporates the same type of personalization shown in the previous example. The logo in the return address, as well as the theme of the campaign, grab the attention of the recipient, causing them to take action and open the envelope. The next example is from a follow-up mailing. This is interesting. Customers and prospects of this particular company were invited to complete a brief survey. In return, they were to receive a $5 Starbucks coffee card. Now, in addition to some relevant questions about the responders' satisfaction with the company, with their products and services, there were also a couple random questions thrown into the survey, one of which was, what's your favorite color? The color that they chose was incorporated into a thank you card that was mailed to the responder containing their coffee card, their gift card. The coffee mug that the man or woman held on the front of the card, depending on the gender of the responder, was created using the favorite color that the responder reported. So you'll see these are 4 different cards shown here, and depending on what their favorite color was and whether or not they were male or female, the design would switch for each recipient. One last example on this page is a university self-mailer to supporters of the university's arts programs. Now this is the back side of the folded self-mailer, or the front side, I guess. The outside cover of the self-mailer was static, and every piece contained this image. However, on the address side of the self-mailer, the image in the lower right-hand corner varied for donors to music programs, theater programs, and the university's arts program. Again, subtle, but very effective. Now, this is an example of a static mailer front. Included in the same print run, using the same overall self-mailer format, was the School of Law version and the student-athlete version. These pieces were mailed to donors and prospective donors who were graduates of the university. If the graduate was a student-athlete while at the university, the inside of their self-mailer might look something like this: a day in the life of a Washburn student-athlete. If the donor or prospective donor was a graduate of the School of Law, they would receive what appears to be a completely different self-mailer inside, but in reality, the images and text have simply been switched out based on characteristics of the recipient from the database. And here's another example of a student-athlete self-mailer version on the inside of the mailer. And note, within the copy, there's even customization. For example, the ask amount that we're asking John to consider is a gift of $150. This amount was requested based on a percentage increase from the amount that John had given in a prior year. So each one of the letters was slightly different, even in the amount requested. A final example is of a self-mailer that incorporates multiple levels of personalization. And I would say that this is an example of a self-mailer that's connecting. Let's look first at Carl. Carl is receiving this self-mailer as a part of a university campaign that's celebrating the 100th anniversary of the university. The piece was designed, this is the outside of the self-mailer. The inside was designed based on a timeline that begins with the charter of the university in 1910 and continues through the anniversary celebration in 2010. Carl's graduation date of 1947 is indicated with a red pinpoint on the timeline. The image on the front of the self-mailer and in the lower left-hand corner are both incorporated into Carl's mail piece because they were taken in the 1940s, or the decade of Carl's graduation. Now next is John, and John graduated in 1966. John's marketing piece contains the same timeline as was incorporated into Carl's marketing piece, but this piece notes John's graduation year of 1966. And then Stephen and Linda. They both graduated from the university in the same year. Now, instead of mailing two separate marketing pieces to their household, the university's database allows for Stephen and Linda to receive one mail piece. And again, the piece designated their graduation year of 1982. And note that the images on the front and then on the inside also have changed just like they were in the other pieces, and a color photo was used on the inside of this marketing piece where the previous examples on the inside were black and white. MarketPath recently published several interesting findings from several sources regarding the impact of personalization. A study by Cal Polytechnic State University showed the impact of personalization on response rates, response time, and repeat orders. The Digital Printing Council reiterated these findings of Frank Romano and David Browdy's study showing that a personalized direct mail piece generates a response rate 500 times higher than that of a static mail piece. Got Marketing reminds us that the effect of personalization is not just in print. In specific to fundraising, ClickZ shows that even the open rates are higher when utilizing personalization on the outside of a mail piece. If you'd like to read more, the featured white paper on Lexinet701.com includes information from Frank Romano and David Browdy's study, and that white paper is titled Energize Your Fundraising, 3 Keys to Record-Breaking Results. What's next for personalization? Well, personalized video is emerging as an avenue to connect with your donors and prospects. You can take a static video that you've created on campus or at an event and overlay personalized information such as text, including the user's name or the recipient's name, and incorporate that into a video just for your recipient. From the personalization of Pinterest to the studies by NeuroFocus to the marketing pieces that we send to our donors and prospects, we can effectively utilize personalization to make our recipients feel a connection to us and to our organization. They will then heed an emotional trigger and they will respond. And with that, we conclude today's presentation. You'll note my email address on your screen. Please feel free to reach out at any time by email or by phone. And please also take a few minutes to visit our website at www.lexnet701.com. On the site, you'll find industry news that is updated several times each week, if not each day, case studies, industry reports, and much more. Join us on Twitter, LinkedIn, and Facebook as well. And please join us on the second Tuesday of each month for a new LexNet 701 monthly webinar. I know we're kind of reaching the end of our timeline. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out and send those to us via email or even by phone. And we will be glad to answer those questions. Again, I'm sorry we're kind of up against the time limit. So thank you once again, and we'd like to wish everyone a very happy Valentine's Day. Thank you.